All right, you guys, we've got a guest that I've been wanting to have on EP Live for a very long time. He's a friend that I've met in various places at different cons over the years, and he's got a dream job. He works for Marvel, and he's going to tell us all about the cool things that he gets to do. Ryan Penagos is here, Agent M from the Twitterverse. Thank you for joining us, Ryan. It's great to have you here, pal.
Yeah, my pleasure, Vic. Always happy to talk with you.
I love that this is your apartment that we're Skyping into, but you have a comic rack back there. Do you actually sell some of those comics to friends when they come over? How does that work?
No. Comics come in, sometimes they go out. But I actually give a lot of comics away to, we have like a local lending library, and I just drop comics there all the time. Sometimes I'll leave them on the subway, but this is like my private stash, the good stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. How does it work for you with picking the comics to read, because you have access to everything? You have them all. I see the pictures of the stuff that comes on your desk, and it would be intimidating. How do you start?
Well, so part of what I do at Marvel is I literally read every single Marvel comic that comes out every week for one of my shows called Marvel's The Pull List, where we talk about like, hey, this is what we're excited about. This is what we're doing at Marvel. Here's a reason to read it. Here's who's doing it, all that stuff. So I have to read everything. It's such a tough job, you know? It's like, I got to read all the comics.
It's like me having to play all the games. I know, it's so hard.
We live very difficult lives.
Yeah. Do you usually start with characters that you love first, or do you save those? Do you savor those?
So years ago, I used to like go from the stuff I either knew little about or was less excited about to the stuff that I really wanted. Like sort of you build up to the best. But now I just go alphabetical because I take notes of everything and sort of I try to think about things in a different analytical way. So now I'm boring. I just read everything in order. Although we have really big XMen comics that are starting 2 weeks from today,
right?
Called House of X and Powers of 10, and I'm super excited about those. I just got those today before I left the office, so I'm going to read those tomorrow because I just have to.
This is the event, one of the big events that you guys have coming for the year?
Yeah, it's just sort of it's a whole big thing about the X-Men, and it's been in the works for a while. And, you know, it's written by Jonathan Hickman, who wrote a story called Infinity. He created the characters, the Black Order. He did a lot of work with Thanos. So he thinks of really big, cool, wild stories, and that often leads to other people adapting them and taking them and running with them. So I'm very excited to see what he does.
I love Jonathan Hickman. I was just reading with my daughter Final Fantasy number 600 last night on your Marvel Ultimate app. And we loved it with Johnny Cage coming back, or Johnny, I've got Mortal Kombat on the brain, Johnny Storm coming back, you know, and the Annihilus crew and all that stuff. It was phenomenal. Yeah.
So good. You said Final Fantasy 600. I was like, wait a minute. Do we do Final Fantasy comics? And I've just been missing out. You met Fantastic
This
Four.
is my problem. I'm mixing all my worlds all the time. I saw SpiderMan again today, and I've got comics and games. But no, Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Number 600, which was a great issue.
So
that app, the Marvel Comics Unlimited, is unbelievable. What a gift.
Thank you for the cheap plug. I appreciate it. 25,000 comics and growing every week.
It's incredible. And my kid, who I have gotten it, she's only 7, so we started reading like My Little Pony and things like that, but she is a comics fan. And so she saw me reading a Spider-Man book, and we just jumped in and read through some of the Dan Slott stuff, and then he was getting the Fantastic Four outfit on, and so we sort of did a little dovetail into the Fantastic Four stuff, and that's what that app allows you to do.
Have y'all read Unbeatable Squirrel Girl together?
No.
1, she's Canadian.
Yeah.
2, she's awesome. It is one of my favorite books that we put out. We see so many young fans, both boys and girls, families reading together, so many young cosplayers who check out Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. There's so many little jokes and details, and it's like one of those books that as a kid, it's going to change the way you think about comics.
Fantastic.
As an adult, there's so much to love.
Well, I'm definitely going to put that on my list. Let's talk a little bit about some of the comics that are sort of happening right now and coming out through the summer. You've got War of the Realms Omega. What is that one all about?
So War of the Realms was... So I'm sure everybody who watches EP loved Marvel Studios' Avengers Endgame, and there's that giant fight right at the end, like that giant battle.
Yeah.
War of the Realms is kind of that level of epicness. It's all these worlds coming to Earth and saying we're taking over, and then it's Thor and all the Marvel heroes stopping them, and it's beautiful and it's amazing. It's Jason Aaron, Russell Dodderman, and Matthew Wilson, and so Omega is the coda to that story, and it sets up Jane Foster as a new character. It sets up Punisher going after and literally just going on a kill spree to hunt down the remaining villains that are left, and it's got a bunch more. Loki is now the king of Jotunheim, so it sort of sets all that up.
That's amazing. I think a lot of people are obviously being introduced to the Marvel Universe through the movies, and everybody is, marveling. I'm terrible with the puns. About the idea that there's all of this crossover and there's so much intelligent, threading from plot to plot, from movie to movie. But Marvel, as a comic series and as a brand, an imprint, has been doing that since the beginning. You would always have, and I think DC did it to a degree, but Marvel has always had their heroes cross-pollinating and popping in interesting different places all the time.
Yeah, I mean, we're celebrating our 80th anniversary this year, so we go way back into 1939, and even in the early 40s, right around that time, we didn't have the Fantastic Four, but we had Namor the Submariner, we had a Human Torch. And there's some wild issues, even back then, where they would fight. At one point, there's like a rampage in a zoo, and Namor stops an elephant from trampling a baby. And then he's like so annoyed at himself for helping the humans that he tosses the baby at the people. And then the Human Torch, in a separate story, is following after him. And it's this really interesting thread of the repercussions of one story and the sort of follow-up from another. And they were doing this in the 40s.
That's incredible. Yeah, and you can feel it. I mean, it permeates through the movies for sure. The other thing that Marvel is doing is the revitalization of the Star Wars line of books. And I've read a bunch of them. It's Dr. Aphra.
Dr. Aphra, yeah.
Yeah, she's one of the coolest characters that's been introduced through the books. I don't have time to read every single thing like you, but when I dive in, it's like, wow, I really feel like I'm watching a Star Wars movie. There's a real connection to it all, and it's all part of the lore now, right? It's all part of the canon.
It's all canon.
What's special about 68, Star Wars 68?
Yeah, so Star Wars 68 was actually what I was going to talk about, because if you're talking about books that feel like the movies, 68 is, we have a new creative team, and we've been doing Star Wars now for 5+ years. 68 is by Greg Pak, who he has done a bunch of amazing work. Planet Hulk, he was the writer on that. And Phil Noto, who is one of the most masterful comic book artists in the world. The two of them together, they're telling a story now in the lead up to Empire Strikes Back. And the tone, the style, Phil is such a smart visual artist that he's creating costumes and worlds that feel like they're that 70s vibe. It's not like, oh, we're doing future Star Wars stuff. No, it feels like what the costume designers from Lucasfilm would have probably made in the late 70s, early 80s. And it picks up the dialogue. Everything about it is so good. I actually have number 69 on my desk to read this weekend.
That's awesome. When you work on a title like that, obviously Lucasfilm and Marvel are all under the Disney umbrella, but is there do the comic creators work with the story group at Lucasfilm, and is there a collaboration on every single issue, or is it we have the beats and let you guys go to work?
I think they work really closely together. Do you know Matt Martin, who's on the story group? Matt's been at Lucas for so long, and he's doing really cool stuff now. Have you played Vader Immortal?
I met him through that. Yeah, incredible. Yeah,
dude, good. And I've known Matt for so long. And so Matt is part of the story group. He works closely with the comics folks, and it's constant. It's like they're always thinking about these things in ways that further the comics, further the movies, further everything that you're thinking about for Star Wars. We just put out a Captain Phasma book. It might have come out today, which is really good and just makes you hate her so much. But it's so enjoyable.
You have a book listed in a list of some of the things that we were going to talk about today, The History of the Marvel Universe. What is that all? I mean, is this like for the people that are brand new to Marvel to get the whole deep dive? What's that all about?
It's for everyone. So
Yeah.
it's written by Mark Waid, who Mark Waid is a legend in
Yep.
comics, and he's one of those dudes. Every time I talk to him, he knows he's one of those, like, there's like 5 or 6 people who I can ask any question about Marvel history, he's gonna know it.
Wow.
And so this is the perfect book for him. He's writing it, and the artist on it is one of the most mind-blowing, amazing, one of my favorite artists named Javier Rodriguez, and the two of them are doing really beautiful stuff, and it is literally telling the history of the Marvel universe.
Wow.
In this prose style that it's like 6 issues long. It's really beautiful. It is perfect for someone who just wants to like learn about Marvel history.
Yep.
And it's also perfect for me, who's gonna inevitably find stuff that I didn't know about, because you have a guy like Mark who's gonna pull in little threads and bring it to the fore.
That's amazing. Now, when a guy like Mark is working on a book like that, which is clearly engineered to celebrate the history of Marvel, but also to kind of, I would imagine, set up the future of Marvel a little bit. Is this a thing where, you know, a Marvel comic writer talks to Marvel entertainment producers to see what's sort of in the pipeline and what can be teed up a little bit?
So, you know, one of the brilliant things that we've been doing for a long time here at Marvel is we have editorial summits. So 2, sometimes 3 times a year, it's usually twice a year, the publishing team at Marvel Comics, they come together. It's all the editors. Then they fly in about 5 to 12 of our writers. And so it's guys like Jonathan Hickman, Jason Aaron, Mark Waid, Kelly Thompson, so many people. They come in together. Then you have people like me who get to sit on the sidelines and like learn about everything. You have people from Marvel Games, people from animation, people from all different parts of the company to sort of say, okay, you watch them over the course of a couple days, build the future of Marvel Comics. Literally, they go out as far as like 2+ years, while at the same time talking with and thinking about the implications for everything that's going on in all the other parts of Marvel. So there's a synergy, but also an organic storytelling that comes through all of this.
That's amazing. I love what you guys are doing with Star Wars, and this like just makes my mind explode with the idea that, and I know you have long-running existing franchise characters that have had series for a long time, and sometimes you reboot them. Do you also have MCU series in comic form that pick up from, like, let's say Captain Marvel from the movies, but then you carry on with that sort of iteration of Captain? Do you also do that kind of thing as well?
We do it a little bit. So we do some adaptations, and then for some stories we'll add in new scenes, and there are things based on, maybe there were script pages that weren't in the final film, but make sense, and we can tell that story in the comics. You know, we have a lot of those, and we've been doing them for a long time. It's a little bit here and there. Sometimes you'll find, I think there was around Civil War, if I recall correctly, there were some extra scenes that we did in the comics that are, you know, we look at as canon.
That's amazing. It is incredible how much everybody is learning and working together at your company, and it's so clearly evident, whether you're watching a Marvel show or reading one of the books or whatever, or playing the games now. It's amazing stuff. You've got a Loki #1 come. Is it out now, or is it coming out?
So part of the thing that drives me nuts is I read everything, and we record our shows in different times.
Sure.
So sometimes I read books that are coming out in like 3 weeks, like well ahead of time. So I think Loki is out next week.
Okay.
Yeah, Loki #1 is out next week.
Okay, what's
really
going on there?
Daniel Kibblesmith is the writer, and Daniel, he actually writes for The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, which is really fun.
Awesome.
And he's great. Oscar Bazaldua is the artist on it, and it's basically Loki's now kind of a good guy. He's helped really save the world in War of the Realms, and so now he's king of the Frost Giants, and he's pals with Thor, but he's kind of a guy who's like, yeah, but I still like causing a little chaos, or I have questions about all of this. And so there's a lot that happens out of it. It's really good.
Fantastic. I want to talk a little bit about the Runaways, because I read the run when it first came out, or I read the Collected when they were all in sort of the mini format. It was a great format.
Yeah.
And I've heard the show is great. I haven't watched the show yet. But what's happening with the series now? And should people jump in with current issues of the Runaways, or should they start right from the beginning?
So yeah, there's a current run. We're probably issue 22 or so right now, and it's written by Rainbow Rowell, who's hugely famous YA novelist, and she's amazing.
Cool.
And it's drawn by this gentleman, Andre Genoulet.
It's a great
is so-
idea. Explain what the Runaways is, just in case people
Sure.
don't know anything about the Runaways.
Yeah, so the Runaways is a group of kids who sort of grew up together. Their families worked together, and so they knew each other because of their parents. They find out one day that all their parents are supervillains, and in the comics, they're supervillains trying to bring forth essentially apocalypse. They're like worshiping these elder gods called the Gibborim, and they're doing sacrifices and all this stuff, and the kids are like, this is terrible. So they rebel, they run away. And so we've been doing that for years. Joss Whedon has done a run on it. It's been, really cool. But now Rainbow came on, and it is, I think it's my favorite run of all the series that we've done from Runaways. It's
Cool.
just so smartly done. There's really interesting developments for the characters. The art is drop dead gorgeous. And if you have Marvel Unlimited, the first 15 or so issues are all up on there, so you can catch up real quick.
And I recommend those. Those are phenomenal. Ryan, when did you start at Marvel?
October 30th, 2006, so almost 13 years ago.
Okay, because there is some symmetry here with our careers, because, and I've never really talked about this that much about what was happening with EP, because we transitioned from a weekly video game show to a daily sort of cross-threaded entertainment show about the sort of geek culture out there. I used to say it was like we used to do E3 every week, and then we did Comic-Con every day, is kind of how we pivoted.
Yeah.
But you started at Marvel just as Iron Man was coming together, and the machine around, the explosive machine, and it wasn't owned by Disney back then, so it was
No.
a totally different company. And I was talking in the early days of EP Daily about how relevant Iron Man was going to be, and how the MCU was going to change all of the stuff. We did the making of Iron Man, the Sega video game, and the making of the Hulk. So I've seen the catalyst that the MCU has been for people like you and me, right? It's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's wild. I think about it now a lot, especially because we're 11 years into the MCU, like from the first film. It's 11 years and change since Iron Man first released.
Yeah.
And, I talk to a lot of fans, whether it's online or in person at events, and so many of them are like, I remember going and seeing Iron Man when I was a little kid and all this other stuff. And it's wild. I remember being in the theater for the Marvel screening in New York, for Iron Man, and we had been working with studios and everything, and we were excited for it, but we hadn't seen it. And I remember credits roll, and it's like AC/DC playing, and we're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
That was real. It was so
Yeah.
exciting. And back in maybe 2007, nobody knew Iron Man on the scale that they know him now.
Totally, yes. Yeah.
We actually produced these 3 60-second videos to introduce Iron Man to the broader public by teaming him up with well-known characters like SpiderMan and the Hulk. It was done by Blur Studios, who, if you know video games, and
Yep.
Tim Miller, just amazing work back then. And we had to show that Iron Man had his HUD. That's where we started to show it, because kids, literally, we had research that kids thought Iron Man was a robot.
Yeah.
And so there was so much work to be done. And you think about that now in 2019, it's like nobody doesn't know Iron Man.
That's awesome. Did you guys know, as a collective at Marvel, that your world was about to change forever after that first screening?
It started to hit right away.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, that first screening, we didn't have the stinger on the movie, so
Right.
we didn't have the Nick Fury scene at
Right.
the end.
Yeah.
And so people started popping up after that. We were like, wait, what? So we were trying to keep everything so secret. We didn't even have it when we first saw it, and I think that for me was like, oh yeah,
That's
Here we
awesome.
go.
So your job, obviously, over that amount of time has changed a lot. You're a media host, and you host a lot of programming for Marvel. But what is your title? What is your specific role at Marvel?
Okay, it is very. It tells you so much. It's Vice President and Creative Executive. which
That's
tells
cool.
you nothing. Yeah, no, it's great. I'm very happy with it.
It's very
I like it.
open-ended, Ryan. I like it.
It allows me to say, yeah, I host a lot of stuff, but I also get involved with a lot of things that we do at Marvel New Media and ideas and sort of planning the stuff that we do. Because, look, I've been reading Marvel comics since I was like 6 years old. I know Marvel very well. It means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And so being able to do what I do is very important for me.
You've also been able to be in this really cool position of being on the red carpets and visiting the sets and the studios as a lot of these things have come together. I know you're going to have too many stories to kind of recount everything here, but do you have a few favorite moments or encounters with cast members that are your favorites?
Yeah, so we recently had Clark Gregg come to the Marvel offices in New York. We were doing an episode of my show, This Week in Marvel,
Yep.
and we were supposed to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all this stuff, and I was just like, Clark, it's our 80th anniversary. I want to talk about some of our favorite memories. And I recounted to him when we were on the set for the first Marvel's Avengers film. It was in New Mexico. It was a great set visit. I remember being in a van going to set, talking with some of the journalists, and they were telling me about this Game of Thrones thing that was going to be really big, and they were really excited about it. And so we go out one night. We had been at the set. It was really cool. And we go to eat dinner. It's like 20, 30 journalists and press people and all kinds of staff. And Clark Gregg comes into the same restaurant because it's a very small town where we were filming.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I'm just going to sit and eat with you guys. And so Clark Gregg sits down for like this long 2-hour dinner, just
Nice.
talking and hanging out, because he's a big old geek. He's a huge Marvel head, and he loves film. He loves everything that we all love. He's one of us. And so that, like, humanizing of this person who had been in several films, who was such an important part of this film that we were working on, that was really cool. That was a lot of fun.
Have you encountered, a lot of fans on the, that are playing these heroes? Like, were they huge comic fans and they knew all of the stuff before they got the roles? I can't imagine all of them are like that, but are you finding some of them that are just overjoyed that they get to play these characters?
I mean, overjoyed for sure. I talked to a guy like Dave Bautista. Dave is one of my favorite people. He is so great. He just, like, I remember walking around the Marvel offices with him a couple years ago, just being like, yeah, so I'll give you the tour. We'll walk around. I was like, I remember reading this when I was a kid, and there's this big poster of all these characters, and he was like, I loved this, and we were asking questions, going back and forth. He's like, oh, naming this character and all this stuff, and it's just like the joy and the love was for him is so true. And it's like you said, varying levels. Some actors know their stuff from being a kid. Some of them got into it because of the other movies, which
Yep.
I think is such a wonderful thing as well.
I've loved seeing Chadwick Boseman's reaction to the responsibility of playing Black Panther, and Brie Larson to a degree too. Like, it's really cool to see. Like, I take my kid to Disneyland sometimes, and just to see the different types of people wearing the costumes and the outfits, it's amazing, man. Marvel is spreading its reach everywhere.
Have you ever seen, there's a great video of Captain America at Disneyland, the gentleman who was the character there, and a young man comes up, probably a child comes up, and he was deaf, and his parent was doing ASL with him, and the Captain America starts signing to the kid.
Oh my God.
And it's just like,
That's incredible.
just Niagara Falls, the
Wow.
greatest moment in the world.
Wow. Yeah, and I know that Star Wars Land has just launched, and you've been. I haven't been yet.
I haven't been.
Oh, you haven't been? Okay.
I've been so busy. I haven't been yet. I'm dying.
I can't wait to go too. But I know that they've broken ground, or they're starting the Marvel Land, whatever it's going to be called. So that's going to be wild when all of those attractions are put together too.
You have no idea.
Oh,
I
you
can't
do-
say a dang
Yeah.
thing, or else I'm gonna get a sniper coming through the
This
window.
is the thing with
next to
Ryan.
me.
He knows everything. He's got all the secrets. He knows all of what Kevin Feige's going to go up on stage and talk about with MCU or for Phase 4. And he can't tell us any of that stuff. But let's talk a little bit about Spider-Man Far From Home, Because Tom Holland is one of these guys that has come out and said, I want to be Spider-Man forever. I'll be an old man playing Spider-Man. I would be fine with that. I love this kid. He's incredible as this character. I loved Far From Home. I just saw it for the second time, and it's much better the second. It's a dense movie, and the Mysterio stuff, it just blows your brain. Like, it's just so insane what they did with all of that stuff.
Yeah, the illusion work, and so sometimes when we get to see the films, we see them ahead of time. I remember seeing the first Ant-Man like 2 months before it came out, and there was so much of the VFX that wasn't completed yet. And so I saw Spider-Man Far From Home probably a week and a half, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks before it came out. And so it was really close to done. But when I was so confused because I was like, well, the movie's not done. Is Mysterio in like a mocap suit, or is that just an unfinished scene? But it was so smart. It
was such a comment on superhero movies, wasn't it? To have Gyllenhaal in the suit, and he said, "No, let's not. It needs more destruction." It was very clever. I liked all that, and I also like. Some people haven't seen it, so we don't want to spoil too much. But I also like that they had a lot of homages in the license plates. There was lots of information to pull from the license plates. But they do tease a little bit about what might be a big part of the future with the Skrulls. They're back and they're shape-shifting. And I don't want to reveal too much about that. If you, let's say people don't know anything about the Kree and the Skrull conflict, what should people maybe be reading to kind of anticipate some directions that the MCU might be going into?
So that's a tricky one because I don't want to say that this stuff will be indicative of what could come ahead, in the future. But the Kree Skrull battle has been such an important part of Marvel Comics history. There's a 70s Kree Skrull war that was really important for Marvel Comics. It sort of developed. It's like one of those lauded storylines of its era that was really great. And there's sort of well done in the movie. There's both sides of that conflict have heroes and villains and right and wrong, and it is very much a war. So I would say Kree Skrull War is terrific. Secret Invasion was great just for a pure Skrull story about them infiltrating and who do you trust and that kind of stuff. I love that. And the Kree has been around for so long. We've seen members of them in Guardians of the Galaxy and in other movies, Captain Marvel, of course. You can find so much cool Kree stuff.
And there's, and this is just from me, as a fan, just reading deep, because I haven't read all of these comics yet myself either, but just to read the depths that this Kree-Skrull relationship goes, it's very intriguing, and there's a lot to mine there, if that is the decision. What I love about the MCU is that there is a lot of head fakes. There's a lot of, secrets, like what they did with the Mandarin. There's a lot of stuff, which I love, by the way. I love that in Iron Man 3. There's a lot of things where you think you know what's going on, but you don't know everything that's going on.
I know. And look, we have 80 years of comics history that we've developed over time, and Marvel Studios can look and will look and does look at all of it and then says, okay, we'll do this, but we're going to do it this way and find this, angle and take this tweak and turn this character on its head, and they come up with just the best ideas.
Awesome. Well, I can't let you go before we talk about video games, because you got back from E3 not too long ago, and Marvel Games has been killing it. We have two big ones headed our way. One very soon with Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. You've been able to get some good hands on time with that. Do you have a finished version of that already? Have you been playing it?
I was waiting for your call, and I was like, you know what? I don't have a copy of MUA yet. So I slacked two of our producers on the game, and based on my Slack notifications, they haven't gotten back to me yet. I need my copy.
I've been bugging people too.
I'm going to Comic-Con next week, and I want to take my Switch with me, and I want to do 4-player co-op with fans at the Marvel booth. I think that's going to be so much fun. That game, it's going to be great. I played a bunch of it. I think fans are going to be happy. There's so much to unlock and play, and just the plans for it are a lot of fun. It's great script, huge fun.
Awesome, and another killer move from Nintendo to like surprise everybody with that, bringing it to the Switch as an exclusive. Very cool. Now the Avengers reveal, I saw the behind closed doors, and I was blown away by the variety and the action, and it stitched a lot of the questions that you have when you just see that first sort of trailer. It put it all together for you much better than I think what we've seen in terms of just what they've released video form. But you've obviously been around this game quite a bit. Should Marvel fans be concerned about the game, or because a lot of negative stuff came up about the costumes and stuff, but you've seen a lot of this game. What do you think of it so far?
I've seen a lot of it. I've played a bunch of it. I'm super excited for it. It's hard for me to, like, some people are like, well, you're just a shill, you work at Marvel. But
yeah.
I've seen a wide variety of quality Marvel games, like Marvel SpiderMan exclusively for PlayStation 4 is incredible.
Yeah, that was my game of the year last year, by the way.
Me too.
And I'm not a shill for PlayStation or so. I just couldn't stop playing. I still can't stop playing that game.
Yeah, and I think Comic-Con is coming up. There's a lot for us to talk about, a lot for us to show and share and get people excited. And I think, as we get further and further along, it's just going to get better and bigger. And the plans that they have, like we talked about, like there's a lot for this game in time. It's not just like we drop the game and then we walk away. It is a long-term concept for us to do this game. And Marvel Games and the team of Crystal, they're doing really cool work. I think people will have their reservations, and I believe that we will quell any fears that they have in time.
I mean, the thing that I always come back to is when they released the Spider-Man PlayStation 4 trailer and he had the white spider logo. That was weird for me. It was a different Spider-Man. But you get over it the minute you jump into the game, and I think that's going to be the case for all of the different outfits and designs that they've got going on for the Avengers game as well. I trust Crystal D. I have to ask how emboldened the Marvel Games team must be, riding on the success of Marvel's Spider-Man.
Well, think about it this way. They've been working on this game before Spider-Man came out. They were working on the game while there were people who were saying, well, that white spider looks real weird. But you have to put, like, if you know games, like, you got to put your head down, you got to work on the product, and you got to do what you got to do. And Marvel Games team is tons of really dedicated professional people. A lot of people know Billy Roseman. I've known Bill for a long time.
He's an amazing dude.
Yeah.
Amazing guy.
As creative director, he is very much looking at that and trying to keep that Marvel DNA there. And there's producers and people from top to bottom on the games team who think about this game very dearly every day. And like when I go and sit down with them, they're like, check this out, check this out, check this out. Like Bill will sit me down and be like, all right, watch this cutscene. What do you think? And like, we'll talk about it. I'll be like, I like this, that dialogue, or what was great, blah, blah, blah. They're always finessing and working, and it's exciting.
Awesome. How much has Marvel changed for you as a company since you started? Is it a different company, or has Disney let Marvel be Marvel, even though it's grown, enormously as a business?
It's a little bit of both, I mean, I very close my eyes. I remember the day we heard about the acquisition and sort of like what's going to happen, and then we were told, like, no, we're going to be able to be Marvel. We're very successful because we are Marvel. Like, let's keep down that road, and we've been able to do that. And we just have a lot more opportunities now than we had, when I started. We're a bigger organization. We have a lot more backing, a lot more support, and that has helped us a lot. It's otherwise though, like, I still get to do silly stuff. I still get to have fun. We do a lot of cool things. It's pretty great.
Awesome. So you now are prepping for your Comic-Con shows? That's where we're going to see you next?
Oh, yeah. So, Marvel Live at San Diego Comic-Con, marvel.com/SDCC 2019. Nice. We're going to be live for 4 days at Comic-Con. I'm hosting a bunch of things on our stage. I have one panel. I'll be going to a couple of panels. We just do a whole lot of fun stuff. I was looking at some of the interviews I'm going to be doing and guests I'm going to be talking to and events that we'll be talking about. Is if you are going to Comic-Con, come by the Marvel booth. If you're not going to Comic-Con, watch the streams. It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Can I get your favorite Marvel movies so far?
You didn't prep me for this one. So, this is an interesting one because it sort of changes depending on my mood and the time, and often with comics, like my favorite book often changes week to week because I
Sure.
read so much. And so
Yeah.
with the movies, I've been very much like, man, Spider-Man Far From Home was so good. I think my overall favorite superhero movie is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Just
Yes. Yes.
one of my favorite movies, if not my favorite movie of all time.
I am right there with you, man. And Superman for me, because I'm a kid of the '80s, right? So Superman, the movie, the first one, was so huge. But Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse sits right there with it, which is such an incredible accomplishment.
Yeah, just the work that they've done for it. Like you can freeze frame if you get like the Blu-ray, you can freeze frame any shot, and the way they created it, there's no blur. Like their animation technique is every frame is a still, beautiful, gorgeous shot. And like the thinking behind that, the pure love for comic books, for Spider-Man, for our fandom is so like present in the DNA of that movie.
Yeah.
It just brings me nothing but joy.
That's a great choice. Do you have a favorite character in the Marvelverse?
So my favorite character is MODOK.
MODOK?
Yeah, MODOK. I've got a first appearance of him back there on the spinner rack.
That's awesome.
But he's created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Beautiful, weird Jack Kirby creation. And when someone's like, why MODOK? I'm like, he is such an interesting character. He can be a comedy character. He can be a horror character. He can be a sci-fi character. He can be a terror character. Like, he can fit anything, but he remains MODOK in every format. And I think it's just such a brilliant creation that has lasted nearly 50 years now. And when everybody gets to see what we're working on for the MODOK show for Hulu, everybody's gonna be like, yeah, MODOK's been my favorite character since I was a baby. I'm like, yeah, join the club.
And the last thing I have to ask is, you were recently on a cover of a Marvel comic book. What was the comic?
It is Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. I have a couple copies back there. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur issue.
Moon Girl and Devil
31 or
Dinosaur.
33.
Yeah.
Which is real fun. Who knew that would happen?
Honestly, how does that feel to be on the cover of a comic at a company that you probably dreamed one day you might get a chance to work at?
It feels amazing. It's like it is a dream come true. We've only had like photo covers for main covers or actual humans on covers less than a dozen times, and I'm one of them, so it means so much.
That is awesome. Well, it means a lot that you joined us on EP Live today, my friend. Thank you so much, dude.
Thank you. My cat Mimi says hello. She just jumped on my lap.
Hi, Mimi.
Vic, you got to come to New York. Come by the Marvel offices. We'll do some stuff there.
I absolutely will. Next time that I'm out that way, I'm going to reach out to you for sure, my friend. Thank you, Ryan. Have a great night, and we'll see you at Comic-Con.